But, of course, there were people that needed to be experimented on, and they used those with certain genetics and political affiliations. And as you mentioned, my family background with the Soviet Union gave me, if you will, a standout for the selection, and I was used in that project from 1970 to 1983. It also involved genetic manipulation, time travel, esoteric weaponry, and of course psychic warfare.
Now, you, in one of the talks I watched on YouTube, you have so much stuff up there. People go there and check out everything Stewart has to say. But in a talk you said basically all civilizations have used mind control of some kind. And one of the things that blew me away was this notion of tattoos being part of that. How is that?
Well, that's very interesting because every symbol, every color has a frequency. So if you embed a frequency or archetype with a color into the human energy field via, let's say, a tattoo, then that frequency is embedded in the psychic structure and the energetic structure permanently. So, for example, if you remember, Charles Manson had a swastika tattooed on his forehead, and that was the kind of symbol that he wanted to portray and embed in his subconscious mind, actually.
Now, all these kids today, I mean, you see people, literally their whole bodies, girls even with big tattoos on their arms and their backs and everything. What does that say about our society now?
Well, unfortunately, if you look at those tattoos, they're not very pleasant. A lot of them involve weapons, blood, all kinds of terrible symbolisms, and that is showing that our society is unfortunately leaning towards the satanic or demonic side, and that is a precursor to the New World religion, which is about to be imposed on the earth.
When we come back, we'll continue with you and get into something called Project Blue Beam, which I know you know a lot about. And we'll be right back with Stewart Swerdlow.
Welcome back to Matrix TV News. Still to come, more with Stewart Swerdlow, former secret government mentalist and clairvoyant.
Stewart has recently returned from an expedition to the Antarctic with shocking information about Fourth Reich underground bases on that continent.
And is there a global program in existence right now that connects time travel and the complete control of all of our minds? Sound far-fetched? Well, maybe not. We'll ask Stewart.
And still to come, our own Jerry Day is back with a darker segment tonight called Big Brother is Telling You Climate Worship. But first, Stewart Swerdlow returns right after this.
Mornings before that tonight, Norwegian authorities are investigating strange lights seen in the Arctic sky. The spiraling white light was seen for several minutes Wednesday morning. Locals say the light appeared to be bigger than the moon. Thousands of Norwegians bombarded the Meteorological Institute to ask what that light could have possibly been. Some feared it could have been a meteor, others a black hole, and there are even those that thought it could be aliens. But defense experts in Oslo suggest it is more likely to have been a failed Russian missile launched from the area of the White Sea. They think a rocket probably went out of control and self-destructed. There's been no official comment, though, from the Russian military.
Now, that's quite the video about this blue beam or some kind of spiral light in Norway. What is that all about, Stewart?
Well, the interesting thing about that particular piece that you have is that it shows an object reflected in the lights over Norway. And that object looks very much like a satellite. Now, I have been stating for years and talking about the Blue Beam Project, which actually was tested in 1961 in Havana Harbor when U.S. submarines surfaced just off the coast and projected an image of the Virgin Mary over the city of Havana in the hopes of swaying the people there into overthrowing the communist regime.
I did not know they did that.
Image of the Virgin Mary. What, like a holographic image?
Yes, sir. It was beamed right into the sky over Havana Harbor. It was close to around 11 p.m. midnight at the time. It was in 1961. And that was the very first documented testing of the Blue Beam Project. So you can see that this technology is quite old.
Oh,
So if they were doing that,
man, what can they
1961,
do
think
now?
about what they, I've always thought, Stuart, though, that they could do anything in the sky. I mean, I've been following this for a while, too. They could make it look like an alien invasion, or
Well, that's exactly correct, and that's what they're planning.
or that Jesus was coming.
Well, that's also correct, and they're planning that as well. And that's all part of what they're calling end-time programming. And even recently, in fact, twice in the last 18 months, the Vatican has specifically stated that aliens exist and that, in fact, the ETs are our brothers in Christ. So that's a big change there, and, of course, preparing everyone for what religious changes are coming, and even intergalactic changes are coming for the Earth.
Wow, think of the possibilities here. Some dark faction of the elite government puts Jesus up in the sky, and people follow their knees, and
well, and there's also this whole thing about the Maitreya now.
Total control of the planet.
They're talking about this Maitreya, who's supposed to be the Christ consciousness, the Buddha, the Muhammad. So is that part of this, Stuart, where they're going to come out and say that this man is, in fact, the reincarnation of all these?
Well, as a matter of fact, what they're going to do is have, as Richard mentioned, a staged alien invasion, which will lead to a staged second coming of Christ. Now, interestingly, this Blue Beam project is developed in such a way that now these holographic images can actually be felt, picked up on radar, and heard with sound, so that they can hear explosions. You can feel a body as if it was real, even though it's a holographic image.
Wow.
Imagine, if you will, those of you who have seen the Star Trek shows where they had the holodeck, where they interacted with these projections that looked and felt real. That's exactly what this Blue Beam project is like.
Yeah.
And so they will even create a cloned being who they will portray as the Christ. They will match his DNA with the DNA that is found in the Shroud of Turin, which recently has also been proven to be correct by Israeli scientists at Hebrew University, who verified its authenticity, despite other claims against that. And so, yes, they will have this new world religion. The new Christ will proclaim the new world order as his new holy empire. And, of course, matches the DNA of the Shroud. You have these images that look real. Who could say it's not true?
Wow.
Jeez. So if they want to, if they do this, to what end, though? I always go back to this.
To what
What's
end?
the purpose?
Complete control, right?
That is correct. The very first mind control on the earth was religion, where people were told they were not allowed to communicate directly with God because they were inferior. They needed an intermediary, and so all of religions developed this way of getting to God through the religious leaders. And of course, Christianity had the epitome of it all, the Christ figure, and no one could get through God except through him.
I just had a thought here. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if they put a 10-mile-high Jesus in the sky, and beamed it everywhere on the planet, and if they could make it speak to the people of Earth? You'd really get them that way, wouldn't you?
Well, what I feel they're going to do is have the image of Christ, Buddha, Mohammed, Moses, any religious figure you can imagine. They will be transmitted in the areas where those religions are popular, and then they will merge them together into one figure and claim that that is really the aspect of God that all must worship. The New World religion will be imposed on the earth, and there will be no alternative to it.
This is really fascinating.
Wow, we talked, when we started this whole thing, we talked about Norway, and you were just in another cold place that made me think cold, Antarctica. Did you find anything that we should know about down there?
Oh my goodness, you need a whole show on that one. But yes, we did connect to an underground base in Antarctica, which was actually built by the Third Reich back in 1938 to 1944, where they proclaimed they were building an underground paradise for the Fuhrer. They used materials from South Africa and South America, and it was completed in 1944. 1945, caravans of submarines and ships from Germany left towards Antarctica filled with Aryan-type people, all blonde, blue-eyed people, male and female. And then they were never heard from again. Now, in 1946, 1 year after the end of World War II, both the British and the Americans sent fleets of Air Force and Navy to Antarctica for some type of battle, but they never said with whom. And when you go to Antarctica, and we stopped in British bases, Ukrainian bases, Argentinian bases, on the listing for the base, it says that they were there to monitor the enemy. They never said who the enemy was.
Right. Well, I